the European Union established in 2010 the consortium and has been financing its activities since for a number of good reasons. One of them is certainly to foster research on non-proliferation and disarmament across the European Union. And I hope you are also following the results of this research. I would recommend, as Mark will certainly do a number of times, the consortium's website. A number of papers are also at the CPRI website. But one of the reasons that it is an important endeavor for the EU is also to encourage dialogue on non-proliferation and disarmament issues globally. And this is certainly the flagship event, and I hope it will become an annual feature in your calendars too. Now, the title of this session actually encourages us to speak about weaknesses, because the title is The Strengthening of the Global Non-Proliferation Regime. So we tend to forget that the glass is half full, and we'd rather concentrate on the part which is half empty, which is fair, I mean, as long as we keep in mind that there are also success stories. And actually, overall, the global non-proliferation regime, I believe, is a relative success story. However, we today in this panel will take as a point of departure the weaknesses. And here I would like to introduce a concept for the purposes of this discussion of fragilities of the regimes. So I wouldn't concentrate necessarily on gaps, because the weaknesses can come in a number of formats. You know, a gap that we do not have a certain treaty or a certain instrument. We do not have a global treaty, for example, to prohibit the spread of ballistic missiles. But rather, I would concentrate on fragilities, which means, in my opinion, means two things. It is a situation in which, for example, a mechanism is already there, but the international consensus underpinning it is relatively fragile, and it could collapse under certain circumstances. Or, option B, the mechanism is formally there, but it is quite shallow, and actually it might fail to perform its functions in certain situations. So on the outside, you know, it looks good, but in practice, the situation could become worse. And this is, I would like to walk you through a couple of examples of what I mean by this. It starts with the NPT, which I think we all consider to be a success story overall, because it helped to prevent or slow down or actually in some cases reverse proliferation of nuclear weapons. Let's not forget that there have been countries which possessed nuclear weapons and then gave them up. Belarus, Ukraine, South Africa, those are actually positive stories. However, and here I'm introducing the first fragility. The system is not only not universal, I mean, this is the gap category, but the system is relatively easy to abuse, to take advantage of it and leave. And this is what has actually happened in the case of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Here we have a country which was a state party to the NPT, which developed certain capabilities, then announced leaving the treaty, and then tested nuclear weapons a number of times, and now is demanding a nuclear weapon status. So this shows that there is certain fragility in the NPT. It is open to abuse. It has already happened once. Let's think about how to prevent it from happening again. And that's why the issue of addressing the right of withdrawal, the issue concentrated around Article 10, should be an important element of the 2015 review process. We are not talking here about abrogating this right. The right is there. We are not talking about reopening the treaty. However, it should be clear under what conditions and what would follow in case a country invokes Article 10. Another fragility, and this is in the category of international consensus, is obviously the balance between pillars. The non-proliferation and peaceful uses pillar being taken care of in Vienna, the disarmament pillar in Geneva, and actually the statement which by our distinguished panelist who couldn't be with us, and she apologizes, Angela Kane from the United Nations, her statement for this panel was concentrating on the non-existence, as she claims, of global nuclear disarmament. And the statement, I understand, is being available to you on the website, or is being distributed in one way or another. So there is a serious tension already created between the disbalance of the three pillars, and it creates a certain fragility which is undermining the consensus behind the Non-Proliferation Treaty. And there are many in the room which are very conscious of what I am mentioning here. Third fragility is the Non-Proliferation Pillar itself, which has been originally based on a rather simple approach of accountancy and control of declared nuclear material. This is something which clearly proved insufficient and has started to being addressed. However, I don't think the efforts are complete yet. So here the issue of additional protocol, the issue of the small quantities protocol, the approach to the state level concept, which actually has been discussed at length at the last board and general conference, this is something which needs to be taken into account. Moving to chemical weapons, and yes, we are now celebrating very spectacular breakthrough in the case of Syria. We welcome it, the EU has welcomed it. I would actually suggest to keep the bigger bottles of champagne still in the fridge and open them once it's all implemented. But the more general question, which is a delicate question, is a question of national implementation of the Chemical Weapons Convention. I mean, it is what I consider a fragility. I mean, we have a number of states parties to the convention who actually do not have any implementing legislation of mechanism for the implementation of the convention. So we are sort of happy with the appearance of it, and the system is clearly not there to stop the re-emergence, as it is called in the CWC context, or the proliferation of chemical weapons. Now, in the BTWC, we all know that the verification is a very, very, very weak part of the treaty. So it is really fragile, I would say, by itself. The CTBT has been already addressed much better by Lassina in his previous intervention. Now, in case of missiles, and this is both a gap and a fragility, because there is no universal instrument. There is only one regional treaty which is concentrated in Europe, the INF treaty. And actually there are also voices, to my surprise, questioning it. The regime, the control regime, MTCR, by definition cannot be universal. So we are left only with confidence and security building measures, which is fine in the sense that if we consider them as stepping stone towards something more legally binding and more far-reaching. However, HCOC itself is quite fragile. I mean, we'll address it in the afternoon, but already a couple of times there were serious problems with the provision of pre-launch notifications, suspension of pre-launch notifications. The implementation is a problem. Let me then move to the final, directly to the final fragility, which is actually the thinning out of global expertise on non-proliferation and disarmament, which is a paradox because there is high media exposure. Now, when you open newspapers, when you go online, when you listen to the news, there's a lot of talk about WMD, about the destruction, the Iranian case, and so on. However, it's not only superficial. The question is it falling down on prepared ears? Is it even prepared by the people who know what they are talking about when they write about Fukushima, the Iranian bomb, or the destruction of chemical weapons? I am sort of reminded from time to time of a Chinese saying, which can be roughly translated as, learning without thinking is useless, but thinking without learning can be dangerous. So I think we need to invest in non-proliferation and disarmament education at different levels. This has numerous practical advantages. Let me just mention, for example, the outreach to industry on proliferation vigilance, things like this. But this brings me back nicely, actually, to the beginning of my remarks, which is thanking the consortium and the participants for this event here, because I think all of us bear huge responsibility for spreading the word, educating our colleagues in different fields of work, in different branches of government, and the general public.